Hi guys, today we got another how-to for you, and we're going to be fitting an R&G tail tidy to a BMW S1000R, getting rid of this big heap on the back here and tidying the bike up a bit. So what you're going to need, you're going to need a handful of tools, including, well, ratchets, Allen keys, extensions, makes things a little bit easier. And you're going to need some Torx bits, specifically the T25 for the bolts underneath the tail tidy there. And you're also going to need some super glue. Anyone. I think this will be quite a generic video really. You could use any tail tidy. I'm using R&G. You can use whatever you want. You might need some screwdrivers and other bits and pieces. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm sort of learning this along with you guys really, because I've never done one of these before. So let's make a start. The first thing we're going to do is take the seat off, because we need that off to work underneath the alarm system. If you've got an alarm system, some of the stuff's going to be under there, so I'll show you how to move that out of the way. Start taking this off. Right, so first thing we want to do is we want to move this alarm out the way, lay it out the way. Some of the bikes don't have this alarm on, okay, so if yours doesn't have it on, I'm guessing you're just going to have a big gap here. But otherwise, we're going to move the alarm out the way. Hopefully you can see with this light, and we're going to lay it out the way. So you need to remove a little screw down here, just down here. Move that out the way, I've already took it out. Don't unplug the alarm. What you want to do is just remove, actually we need to remove this little clip here, like that, so we can get to this screw, because otherwise you can't get to that screw. Pull the alarm out the way and just lay it back out the way for now. So we've got a bit better access into the back of the bike. The next thing to do, we want to get this tray out the way, because we want to give ourselves as much room as we can to work. A general rule of thumb in anything really is to, one, have light so you can see what you're doing, two, move anything else out the way so you can see what you're doing, so otherwise you spend more time struggling if you don't do that in the first place. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to remove as much of this as possible. So first thing we want to do is pull this little plug off. It just pushes out the way, pops off, then get a screwdriver, lever the top off this and pull that out. A little bit more difficult today because I ain't got a cameraman. Right, hopefully you can see this. So you need to pop the centre out of this little clip with a screwdriver. So that centre piece comes out, and then you can lift that tray out. Just remember you're going to need to do the same under there before this will come completely out. So you're going to need to cut this cable tie and unplug the wire in here, because this is all wiring for the lights and everything at the back. So you're going to need to take that out. One thing I forgot to mention, you're going to need some cutters and some wire crimps and pliers. Basically cut this cable tie if you've got one on there. You can soon replace that. And there's all your wiring, which comes up through the bike down here. So all this is going to need unplugging anyway. If you pull from underneath, you can see which wires are actually attached. So you can see there, as I'm wiggling it underneath, you see things moving. That's always a good sign to see exactly what wires are attached to what. There you go, so you just want to unplug your main lighting wiring. Move that out of the way. That allows you to get to the top of the other pop. Right, so just need to unplug the rest of these wires. Hopefully you can see a little bit better now. It's quite difficult doing this without a cameraman. All these wires have got to go through the bottom of the bike. Just remember, try and take a picture or something like that of where all these plugs go and which ones plug into which. Otherwise you might end up with your indicators not working properly, let's just say. So this can now be removed. Remember which way around it goes. And keep everything in some kind of order if at all possible. So now all your wires are free apart from this one, which needs to just come out of this here, and then they can all pull through the bottom. So now what we want to do is come down underneath the bike. Hopefully the lighting's good enough for you to see this, but there's 3 T25 Torx pieces there. We're going to undo all 3 of those. That will then release this horrible hunk of rear plastic stuff. There you go, you can see, now we've undone them, that will literally just release. There you go, so it's hanging on its wires. So in a minute we'll feed all those wires through. Right, so you just need to feed these wires through the bottom. Hopefully they'll all go through without too much effort. There we go, all the wiring is out, along with that heap of old shit there. Right, so the next stage of this, and this kind of applies to whatever tail tidy kit you buy, but basically you're going to get a mounting bracket, some kind of adapter that will fit over this area here. Now with this one you've got a little hole here and you've got one here, so you want to make sure, if you've got the RNG one, that that hole lines up with that hole. See the gap? Otherwise you're going to cover that hole up and you won't be able to get your wiring through. So make sure that's the right way around. That's going to go over these things here with some rubber grommets that they provide. So the next thing to do, we're going to use the standard 3 bolts that comes with the standard kit. We've got to get these grommets inside these holes here. They're quite tough to get in, so you could either use Asda's washing liquid stuff, or you could use whatever you can find in your girlfriend's bedside cabinet to lube it up. But either way they're going to be pretty tough to get in. Right, they're in. Magic. They're extremely difficult, so if you're struggling, don't worry, you're not the only one. Right, so once again, making sure you got this the right way around, you need to push this over the spacers. They're quite a snug fit, but you can't push the spacers through, so don't worry about that because they're up against metal frame the other side. And just put your bolts back in, like I said before, using the ones that came out originally. T25. Just don't over tighten, just nip these up. So that is the adapter plate now on and in place. Right, if you're using the standard indicators, you need to take these off of this onto our new tail tidy. Okay, so in this case I'm just going to have to take them out here. So we're going to use a 10mm spanner. Forgot to mention you need one of those, and once again a T25 just to take those out of there. Right, we can't remove these yet because we need to take the wiring out. There we go, so they now just pull out once you've separated the wiring. It's a new one. Put the wire through. The specific way that goes on. Turn it and refit using your original nut and bolt. Right, so things are going to get a bit more technical here because you're going to need to replace the old number plate light with a new one. Okay, so everyone's wiring or system or way of doing it may differ slightly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the wires for the old plate light, which is obviously this long one here, somewhere that's going to be inside the bike so that I can lose the wiring, I can lose any untidiness. So make sure you do that underneath the alarm, it's going to be nice and hidden. Okay, so all we're going to do is hopefully, if this goes well, split the loom. Mind your fingers. Can't carry on with the job if you're leaking red stuff. So don't do it really close because you want to give yourself enough wire to mess up if you don't do your wiring properly. So hopefully, if I had a sharp blade it'd be a lot easier. But we can see in there what we've got to work with. And there you go. So you can see that red and brown. I'm going to cut that somewhere there. And I can lose the rest of that because I don't need that. And we've got that to work with. R&G very kindly give me the connectors as well. So on this end, obviously I've got the male connector. I need to fit a female connector onto these wires here. But first I want to see how this is going to sit so I don't fit it all and then need to feed something through a hole that I can't get it through. So mock it up first in the new tail tidy. And before we start mucking about with this wiring, just going to mount this license plate. It's like miniature, you need like miniature hands to do this. Which reminds me of Meccano as a kid. Oh, there we go. It's on. Hardest bit so far. Tighten these up with a size 6. Obviously not very tight because they're tiny. And there we go. That's the new plate light on. I just got to fit the shroud in a minute. Right, so to fit these contacts that they give you, strip your wire back. I usually give them just a little turn. And you're going to want to lay that in there and nip it up so that these two lugs here, I hope you can see this, these two lugs here nip onto the plastic and these ones squash the wire. Right, so my connectors are now installed and I'm going to make this, I'm going to do this slightly differently. I'm going to put this bit back inside the bike and then all I'm going to do is once I've put all this on, I'm just going to plug them in. Right, this is where we hit a bit of a complication. So this is supposed to mount on there like that, but I think this is actually the same kit as they use on the RR, so it doesn't actually fit. So what we got is it's hitting the light and you can see it doesn't mount. There's a gap, don't know if you can see, but it doesn't go up far enough before it actually hits the light. So we're going to have to come up with a way to move this down slightly to give ourselves a bit of a gap between this plate and this here. On your kit, if you've got a different kit, hopefully you'll be able to just mount this straight on with whatever bolts they give you. So whilst I'm figuring out a way to mount this properly, I thought what I'd do was just test all the wiring. Now this is a good idea before you mount this fully, so that's why I've decided to add this in now. But basically plug all your indicators in, plug your wiring in and your new connectors and give them a bit of a wiggle, make sure they're good, make sure just roughly that everything's going to work when you turn the ignition on. Oh, we don't have a number plate light. Now why is that? There we go, that's why. Connector, because I've only just laid them in. But there we go, we now have a number plate light. Obviously it's flickering because it's on video. Indicators, let's try them. We got 1 and we got 2. So everything's working. Hazards, they're working. If you've got an R&G tail tidy, let me just go over this. If you've got an R&G tail tidy, it will not fit. You don't have enough space, you can't move it up far enough. You've got about a 3 or 4 mil gap. There you go. So you need to fill that gap. Now, what I'm going to use to do that is a series of, well, the only real way you can do it is to use washers, to be quite honest, nothing fancy. I've got some of these are like little weird thick washers. They're about what, 2 or 3 mil, and then I'm going to use fibre washers to give me a little bit more thickness. The more thickness I need, the more fibre washers I can just add on there. So problem number 2, we need longer bolts. There's no way that's going to go through there, go through my spacer and into the frame above. Right, I found some longer bolts. When I put these ones in, it should pull that far enough down to clear the light. Word of warning, when you go to find some longer bolts, if you're doing it this way, make sure you get the right thread. You could cut one down as long as you get the correct thread, cut it down to the size you need and file it down so it's not too sharp. Right, to put all your bolts in place, you want a 4 mil Allen key. Don't overdo them, there's not very much thread in the plate behind. just want to nip them up. Right, so that's our plate bracket now fitted, nice and sturdy. There you go. Obviously if you don't have an R&G one, yours might be a little bit more simple. You could probably bypass all the bullshit that I then had to struggle with. Hopefully you bought a better kit than me. Right, next thing, I need to tidy all this wiring up, because as it stands, it's pretty bird's nesty. My wiring is now tidied up as best I can do. And I say as best I can do because, to be honest, it's not really much way to hold that wiring in there. It's pretty naff, to be honest. So far I'm not a massive fan of this tail tidy, I must say. You guys who watch my channel not a lot will know I don't really usually slate anybody's product, but I must say I'm not that impressed so far. So whatever kit you've got, find a way to mount it, find a way to tidy these wiring bits and pieces up and get them in there as tidy as possible. Right, so now we're up the top. I'm going to have to find a way of routing all these wires quite tidily. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug them in. Obviously get your colours correct in this case, red to red, brown to black. Right, so what we're doing now is just mounting all our wires back on with our little poppy bits and everything else, and the alarm holder. There's no real science, once again, just getting it in there, finding your plugs and plugging everything in the correct way. Don't forget to put your little Torx piece back in your alarm here if you've got an alarm on the bike. And then cable tie any loose wires, remount your wires, make sure everything's tidy and how you want it, nice and neat. So now we'll recheck those lights, check we haven't got them the wrong way around. Sort of one final check. Obviously any flickering is because the LED's on the video, so ignore that. Hazards work, indicators, there we go, they're the right way around. And we'll check the number plate light, which is working. So now what I'm going to do is mount my new number plate. There you go guys, that's all on. Wiring's not too bad. Wiring inside's nice and neat. Like I say, it's all really your personal preference how you do the wiring, but hope you can see that's tidied the bike up massively. These indicators come out a little way. What I'm tempted to do is actually adjust the mount by cutting it and welding it slightly differently, but that might be something I do in the future. Lots of other mods to come, but for now she's looking pretty good, looking a lot better. Hope this has been useful for you guys, and if you like these how-to videos, let me know. There's more to be done on this bike yet, all changes, service stuff. So if it's been useful for you and you got an S1000R, then subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.